Marcus Thompson had built Iron Wolf Fitness from nothing. 5 years ago, it was just an empty warehouse in downtown Phoenix. Now it was the most successful gym chain in Arizona, with 12 locations and over 8,000 members. But on a scorching Tuesday morning in July, Marcus was about to make a decision that would destroy everything he'd worked for in less than 48 hours. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you. Make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The man walking through his flagship gym's front doors looked like trouble. Leather vest, steel-toed boots, and arms covered in scars that told stories Marcus didn't want to hear. What Marcus couldn't see was the Purple Heart in Danny Rodriguez's wallet, or the 2 tours in Afghanistan that had left those marks, or the 300 brothers who would soon learn exactly what happened in that pristine gym. Danny Rodriguez pulled his Harley-Davidson into the parking lot of Iron Wolf Fitness at exactly 6:30 in the morning. The July heat was already building in Phoenix, but Danny preferred the early hours. Fewer stares, fewer questions about the network of scars that covered his forearms and disappeared under his black t-shirt. He'd been putting off joining a gym for months. Dr. Patricia Wells at the VA hospital had been clear about his physical therapy requirements. The shrapnel wounds from the IED blast outside Kandahar had healed, but the muscle damage required consistent strength training. Danny had tried working out at home, but the isolation wasn't helping his mental state. He needed structure, routine, and maybe some human interaction that didn't involve discussing his disability rating or adjusting his medications. Iron Wolf Fitness looked professional enough. Clean glass windows, modern equipment visible inside, and a parking lot full of expensive cars. Danny had researched their veteran discount program online, 15% off monthly memberships for military personnel. It seemed like a good fit. The air conditioning hit him like a wall as he entered the lobby. Everything was pristine white and chrome, with motivational posters featuring impossibly fit models striking poses with dumbbells. A young woman behind the reception desk looked up from her computer and smiled automatically. "Good morning. Welcome to Iron Wolf Fitness. I'm Jessica. Are you here for a tour?" Danny nodded, pulling out his military ID. "Danny Rodriguez. I called yesterday about the veteran membership." Jessica's smile flickered slightly as she took in his appearance. The scars on his arms were impossible to miss. Jagged lines where surgeons had dug out metal fragments, burn marks from the explosion, and the surgical scars from multiple reconstructive procedures. She quickly looked back at her computer screen. "Of course! Let me get Marcus Thompson, our owner. He likes to personally meet all our new veteran members." She disappeared through a door marked Management, and leaving Danny to examine the trophy case filled with bodybuilding awards and newspaper clippings about Iron Wolf's rapid expansion across the Phoenix metropolitan area. Marcus Thompson emerged 5 minutes later, and Danny immediately sensed tension. Marcus was everything Danny wasn't: perfectly groomed, expensive suit, the kind of confident smile that came from never having to prove yourself in a life-or-death situation. His handshake was firm but brief, and his eyes kept drifting to Danny's scars. "Mr. Rodriguez, welcome to Iron Wolf. I understand you're interested in our veteran program." "That's right. I need to start a strength training routine for physical therapy." "Your facility looks like it has everything I need." Marcus nodded slowly, but something in his expression had shifted. "Walk with me. Let me show you around." They moved through the main workout area, past rows of cardio machines and weight stations. The few early morning members glanced at Danny with varying degrees of curiosity and discomfort. Marcus pointed out the amenities: juice bar, locker rooms, group fitness studios, but his tone had become increasingly formal. "Mr. Rodriguez, can I ask about your service background?" "2 tours in Afghanistan. Army infantry. I was medically retired after an IED incident." "I see." Marcus stopped walking near a mirrored wall where several members were doing stretching exercises. "And those injuries?" Danny's jaw tightened. "What about them?" "Well, I have to consider the comfort level of our existing members." Iron Wolf has cultivated a very specific atmosphere. Our clientele expects a certain aesthetic environment. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Danny had heard variations of this conversation before, at restaurants, job interviews, even at the grocery store. But he'd hoped a business offering veteran discounts might be different. Are you saying my scars are a problem? Marcus glanced around nervously, lowering his voice. Look, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but we have members who've expressed concerns about feeling uncomfortable around visible trauma. We have a lot of families, young people. This is a place where people come to feel good about themselves, to escape from harsh realities. My scars are harsh realities. I'm just trying to maintain the positive environment that's made Iron Wolf successful. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the YMCA locations. They're used to handling different types of clientele. Danny felt the familiar rage building in his chest, the same anger that had gotten him into trouble during his first year back from deployment. Dr. Wells had taught him breathing techniques, ways to channel the fury constructively. But standing in this sterile gym, being told his war wounds made other people uncomfortable, those techniques seemed inadequate. Let me understand this correctly. You're refusing me membership because my scars might upset your other customers. I'm not refusing anything. I'm simply suggesting that you might find a better fit elsewhere. Iron Wolf caters to a specific demographic, and I have to protect that brand. Danny looked around the gym with new eyes. The perfect bodies, the expensive workout clothes, the carefully curated atmosphere of success and beauty. Not a single visible flaw or imperfection among the members he could see. It was like stepping into a magazine advertisement where real life had been airbrushed away. Your website says Iron Wolf supports veterans. We do support veterans. We have several members who served. But Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. They don't have visible reminders of their service. You mean they don't have scars? I mean they fit our gym's image. Danny pulled out his phone and opened the voice recorder app. Mr. Thompson, I want to make sure I understand your policy. You're denying me membership at Iron Wolf Fitness because my military-related scars might make other members uncomfortable. Is that correct? Marcus's face flushed red. Turn that off. This is a private conversation. This is a place of business, and you're explaining your membership policies. Is my understanding correct? Look, Rodriguez, I don't appreciate being recorded. I'm trying to handle this diplomatically, but if you're going to be difficult. I'm a combat veteran, trying to join a gym that advertises veteran discounts. And you're telling me my injuries are bad for business? Several nearby members had stopped their workouts to watch the confrontation. Marcus glanced at them nervously, then back at Danny with growing hostility. Fine, you want it straight? Your scars are disturbing to look at. This is a high-end fitness facility, not a VA hospital. We maintain certain standards of appearance, and frankly, you don't meet them. There are plenty of other gyms in Phoenix that would be happy to accommodate you. Danny stopped recording and slipped his phone back into his pocket. The silence stretched between them while he processed what had just happened. 27 months in Afghanistan. 3 surgeries to save his left arm. Months of physical therapy to regain full mobility. And now he was being told that the proof of his service was too ugly for a gym in his own hometown. I understand perfectly. Mr. Thompson, thank you for clarifying your position. Danny turned and walked toward the exit, ignoring Marcus's attempts to call him back. Jessica at the front desk looked mortified, but Danny didn't acknowledge her as he pushed through the glass doors into the Arizona heat. Sitting on his motorcycle in the parking lot, Danny pulled out his phone again. His contacts list was full of numbers he rarely used anymore. Brothers from his unit who'd scattered across the country after discharge, guys from the motorcycle club he'd joined to find some semblance of the brotherhood he'd lost leaving the army. The Phoenix chapter of the Serpent's Brotherhood MC wasn't technically the Hells Angels, but they were affiliated, close enough that when one brother had a problem, 300 others would hear about it within hours. Danny scrolled through his contacts until he found Jake "Hammer" Morrison, the chapter president. Jake had done 3 tours in Iraq and understood exactly what those scars represented. The phone rang twice before Jake answered. "Danny! Haven't heard from you in weeks, brother. What's going on?" "Hammer, I need to tell you about something that just happened, and I think the whole chapter needs to hear this story. Talk to me." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Danny started his motorcycle and pulled out of the Iron Wolf parking lot, watching the gleaming building disappear in his mirror as he began explaining exactly what Marcus Thompson thought about. Veterans with visible scars. Jake Morrison was rebuilding a shovelhead engine in his garage when Danny's call came through. 20 years of military service had taught him to read between the lines, and he could hear the controlled fury in his brother's voice as Danny recounted the incident at Iron Wolf Fitness. "Son of a bitch actually said your scars were bad for business?" Jake wiped grease from his hands with an old rag, processing the implications. Recorded the whole conversation. This Marcus Thompson made it crystal clear that veterans with visible injuries aren't welcome in his precious gym. Jake had seen Danny struggle since coming home. The physical wounds were healing, but the isolation was killing him slowly. Finding a gym had been Dr. Wells's idea. Somewhere Danny could rebuild his strength and maybe connect with other people working towards similar goals. Instead, he'd been treated like a pariah. "You still got that recording?" "Every word. Send it to me. This needs to go wide." Within 30 minutes, Danny's recording was circulating through the Serpent's Brotherhood network. Jake uploaded it to the chapter's private Facebook group, tagged every member, and added a simple message. "One of our brothers got treated like garbage for his service scars. Listen to this." The response was immediate and volcanic. Tommy Diesel Patterson had been at his construction job when the notification popped up on his phone. He listened to the recording twice, his face darkening with each replay. Tommy had lost 2 fingers to an IED in Fallujah, and his left cheek bore a shrapnel scar that ran from his ear to his mouth. He'd faced similar discrimination at upscale establishments around Phoenix. This Thompson guy just declared war on the wrong community. Tommy typed in the group chat, "Sarah Phoenix." Williams owned 3 tattoo parlors in the Phoenix area and had been trying to join Iron Wolf for months. The waiting list for new memberships was supposedly 6 months long, but her military service record and veteran status had somehow never moved her application forward. Now she understood why. "I've been getting the runaround from these people for half a year," she posted. Suddenly it all makes sense. The story spread beyond the Serpent's Brotherhood. Phoenix had a massive veteran community, and social media connections linked active duty, reserves, National Guard, and retired military across all branches. By evening, Danny's recording had been shared in dozens of veteran groups, military spouse networks, and patriotic organizations throughout Arizona. Marcus Thompson had no idea what was coming. The first sign of trouble appeared on Iron Wolf's Yelp page around 8 p.m. A 1-star review from Robert Gunner. Hayes, a Marine veteran who'd never set foot in the gym, discriminates against wounded veterans. Owner told a Purple Heart recipient his scars were disturbing to look at. Absolutely disgusting treatment of our heroes. Then another review from Linda Martinez, whose son had died in Afghanistan. "My boy gave his life for this country, and this place would have kicked him out for his injuries. Shameful." By midnight, Iron Wolf Fitness had received over 300 negative reviews across Yelp, Google, and Facebook. The gym's social media accounts were flooded with comments demanding explanations, posting flag emojis, and sharing Danny's recording. Marcus Thompson's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. Jessica from the front desk was practically in tears. "Mr. Thompson, we've got a problem. There are motorcycle riders in our parking lot. Like a lot of them." Marcus pulled into Iron Wolf's lot 40 minutes later to find 50 Harley-Davidsons arranged in perfect formation near the front entrance. The riders stood in a loose semicircle, arms crossed, watching every car that entered or left. They weren't blocking access or causing trouble, just making their presence known. Jake Morrison stepped forward as Marcus approached the building. At 52, Jake was lean muscle and weathered leather, with grey creeping through his black beard. His Serpent's Brotherhood patch was prominently displayed on his vest, along with combat ribbons and a POW MIA flag pin. You, Marcus Thompson. Yes, what's this about? Danny Rodriguez. Remember him? Yesterday morning, right here, you told a Purple Heart recipient his war scars were bad for your image. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd hoped the incident would disappear, that Danny would quietly find another gym and move on. The recording circulating online had been a nasty surprise, but he'd assumed it would blow over in a few days. That was a private conversation taken out of context. Context? Jake's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The context is, you run a business that advertises veteran discounts while discriminating against wounded veterans. That about sum it up? A small crowd was gathering. Iron Wolf members stood uncertainly near their cars, unsure whether to enter the building or leave. Local news crews had started arriving, drawn by social media reports of the confrontation. Look, this is all a misunderstanding. I never said anything about not welcoming veterans. Jake pulled out his phone and played Danny's recording at full volume. Marcus's voice filled the parking lot. Your scars are disturbing to look at. This is a high-end fitness facility, not a VA hospital. The effect was immediate. Several Iron Wolf members who'd been hesitating turned around and walked back to their cars. A woman in expensive workout gear looked disgusted and shook her head at Marcus before driving away. Misunderstanding. Jake repeated flatly. I was trying to explain our membership policies diplomatically. Your membership policies discriminate against wounded veterans. Marcus realized he was digging himself deeper with every word. No, that's not what I meant. We welcome all qualified applicants, but Danny Rodriguez wasn't qualified because his scars might upset your other members. The news cameras were rolling now. Marcus could see reporters interviewing some of the motorcycle riders, probably getting colorful quotes about patriotism and respect for veterans. This was turning into a public relations nightmare. Gentlemen, I think there's been a miscommunication here. If Mr. Rodriguez would like to reapply for membership, I'm sure we can work something out. Work something out. The voice came from behind Marcus. Danny Rodriguez had arrived on his Harley, pulling up to the edge of the gathering. He removed his helmet and walked over to join Jake. Yesterday, you told me I didn't meet your appearance standards. Today you want to work something out? Marcus looked around desperately. More motorcycles were arriving, riders from other chapters, veteran groups and military supporters. The parking lot was filling with leather vests, American flag patches, and hostile stares. Mr. Rodriguez, I may have spoken hastily yesterday. I was having a difficult morning and I didn't express myself clearly. You expressed yourself perfectly. You said my scars were disturbing and that I should find a gym that handles different types of clientele. A reporter pushed closer with a microphone. Mr. Thompson, can you comment on allegations that Iron Wolf Fitness discriminates against wounded veterans? No comment. This is a private matter between our business and a potential customer. The recording suggests otherwise, the reporter pressed. You clearly stated that Mr. Rodriguez's military-related scars were problematic for your gym's image. Marcus pushed past the reporter and headed for the building entrance. I need to get to work. This situation is being blown out of proportion. But as he reached the glass doors, Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. Iron Wolf's flagship location was nearly empty. The usual morning rush of members was nowhere to be seen. Jessica stood behind the front desk looking panicked, and the few people inside were packing up their belongings and heading for the exits. His phone buzzed with a text from his corporate attorney. Need to talk immediately. Social media situation is exploding. Multiple membership cancellation requests coming in. Marcus looked back at the parking lot, where the crowd of bikers had grown to over 100. More were still arriving, and several had set up folding chairs like they were planning to stay all day. Jake Morrison caught his eye through the glass and tapped his watch, then held up his phone. The message was clear. This was just the beginning. By noon Wednesday, Iron Wolf Fitness had become the center of a media firestorm that reached far beyond Phoenix. The story had been picked up by national news outlets, veteran advocacy groups, and social media influencers with millions of followers. Marcus Thompson sat in his office watching the disaster unfold on multiple screens. CNN was running a segment titled "Gym Owners' Discrimination Against Wounded Veterans Sparks Outrage." Fox News had scheduled an interview with Danny Rodriguez for their evening broadcast. The hashtag, the Iron Wolf discrimination, was trending nationally. His corporate attorney, David Brennan, paced behind the desk while fielding calls from reporters, advertisers, and increasingly panicked investors. "Marcus, we need damage control immediately. I've got 6 major sponsors threatening to pull their contracts, and the Phoenix City Council is discussing your business licenses. It's one incident blown completely out of proportion." One incident. David threw a stack of papers on the desk. "I've got 43 similar complaints that came in overnight. Veterans saying they were discouraged from joining, told they might be more comfortable elsewhere, or given impossible membership requirements. This isn't isolated discrimination, it's a pattern." Marcus picked up the complaints and scanned through them. Stories from across all 12 Iron Wolf locations. A Navy SEAL with burn scars told he needed a doctor's clearance that other members didn't require. A female Army veteran with a prosthetic leg informed that the gym's insurance might not cover her participation in group classes. An Air Force mechanic with hearing aids asked to sign additional liability waivers. These are standard business precautions. Marcus, listen to yourself. You created a systematic barrier to keep wounded veterans out of your gyms while advertising veteran discounts for publicity. Outside, the crowd had grown to over 200 people. What started as a motorcycle demonstration had evolved into a full veteran rights rally. American Legion posts, VFW chapters, and military family organizations had arrived with flags, signs, and portable speakers. Rachel Stevens, a Gold Star mother whose Marine son had died in Syria, stood at a makeshift podium addressing the crowd. "My boy lost his life defending the freedoms this country stands for. Veterans like Danny Rodriguez survived their battles but carry the scars of their service. They deserve our respect, not discrimination based on their appearance." The crowd erupted in applause and chants of "Honor our veterans." Local politicians had started showing up, eager to align themselves with the popular cause. State Representative Maria Gonzalez was scheduled to speak at 2 o'clock, followed by Phoenix Mayor William Crawford. Inside Iron Wolf, Jessica approached Marcus's office with a clipboard full of membership cancellation forms. "Sir, we've processed 64 cancellations since this morning. More are coming in every hour." Marcus grabbed the clipboard and flipped through the forms. Premium memberships, family plans, corporate accounts. Some of Iron Wolf's highest-paying customers were walking away. The Hartwell family had been members for 3 years, spending over $8,000 annually between memberships, in personal training and their teenage daughter's swimming lessons. Their cancellation reason was simple: cannot support a business that discriminates against wounded veterans. Peterson Industries had a corporate wellness contract worth $42,000 per year, providing Iron Wolf memberships for 200 employees. They were terminating immediately and citing incompatible values regarding veteran treatment. "How much revenue are we looking at?" Jessica consulted her tablet. Based on current cancellations and the corporate accounts we're losing, approximately $2.7 million annually. And that's just today's numbers. Marcus felt the walls closing in. Iron Wolf's business model depended on high-volume membership fees and corporate contracts. Losing nearly $3 million in annual revenue would force him to close several locations and lay off dozens of employees. His phone rang with a call from Channel 12 News requesting an on-camera interview. He declined, then immediately received another call from the Arizona Republic wanting a statement for their front-page story running Thursday morning. "No interviews, no statements," he told Jessica. Let David handle media requests, but the pressure wasn't just external. Iron Wolf's staff was beginning to fracture under the scrutiny. 2 personal trainers had already submitted resignations, unwilling to be associated with the controversy. The managers at his Scottsdale and Tempe locations were reporting similar membership cancellations and staff departures. At 3:30, Marcus received a call that changed everything. Victoria Hartman, Iron Wolf's primary investor and majority stakeholder, was not happy. "Marcus, I'm watching this disaster on national television." "What the hell is going on?" Victoria had provided the initial funding for Iron Wolf's expansion and owned 60% of the company. Her investment firm specialized in health and fitness ventures, and she had a reputation for cutting ties with problematic partners quickly. "It's a temporary situation. The negative attention will die down in a few days." Temporary. "I've got clients calling me asking why I'm invested in a company that discriminates against wounded veterans." "This isn't going away, Marcus. One incident doesn't define our entire business. 43 documented complaints suggest otherwise. I've been reviewing your membership data, and there's a clear pattern. Less than 2% of your members are military veterans, despite Phoenix having one of the largest veteran populations in the country." Marcus hadn't expected Victoria to dig into the membership demographics. The low veteran enrollment had never concerned him. He'd assumed veterans preferred different types of fitness facilities. "We've never actively discouraged veteran membership. Your own recording says otherwise," you told a Purple Heart. Recipient, "His scars were disturbing and directed him to find another gym. I was trying to maintain the premium atmosphere that makes Iron Wolf successful by excluding wounded veterans." Victoria's voice was ice cold. "Marcus, I built my investment portfolio on companies with strong ethical foundations and community support. Iron Wolf has become a liability. What are you saying?" "I'm saying you have 48 hours to resolve this situation completely, or I'm exercising my contract options to remove you from management and restructure the company." The call ended, leaving Marcus staring at his reflection in the dark computer screen. Everything he'd built was crumbling because of one conversation with one veteran. Outside his window, the crowd had grown even larger. News helicopters circled overhead, and traffic was backing up on the surrounding streets. The Phoenix Police Department had sent additional officers to manage the growing demonstration. Danny Rodriguez stood near the center of the crowd, giving interviews to reporters, while Jake Morrison, coordinated with Other Thursday Morning, brought devastating news to Marcus Thompson's already crumbling empire. The Arizona Department of Veterans Services had launched an official investigation into Iron Wolf Fitness, with the authority to recommend sanctions against businesses found guilty of veteran discrimination. Director Jennifer Walsh announced the investigation at a packed press conference, flanked by representatives from major veteran organizations. The allegations against Iron Wolf Fitness represent a serious violation of Arizona's veteran protection statutes. "We take discrimination against our service members extremely seriously. The investigation would review all Iron Wolf locations, examine membership practices, and interview both current and rejected veteran applicants. If discrimination was proven, the company could face hefty fines and lose the right to advertise veteran benefits or discounts." Marcus watched the press conference from his office while his phone exploded with calls from panicked franchise owners. The Iron Wolf brand was toxic overnight, and individual location owners were scrambling to distance themselves from the corporate entity. "Marcus, this is Carl Henderson from the Chandler location. My parking lot's been empty for 2 days. I've got rent, payroll, and equipment leases to cover. When is this nightmare going to end?" Similar calls came from Mesa, Glendale, and Tucson. The Arizona Republic's front-page story had been devastating, featuring photos of the massive veteran rally alongside quotes from discrimination victims. Local television stations were running follow-up stories every few hours, keeping the controversy fresh in public consciousness. But the most damaging development came from an unexpected source. Dr. Patricia Wells, Danny Rodriguez's therapist at the VA hospital, had written an open letter published in multiple newspapers. I have treated hundreds of combat veterans, dealing with visible and invisible wounds from their service. The discrimination Mr. Rodriguez faced at Iron Wolf Fitness represents a fundamental failure to understand what these scars truly represent. They are not disfigurements to be hidden. They are proof of sacrifice made on behalf of every American citizen. When we reject veterans because their injuries make us uncomfortable, we reject the very freedoms they fought to preserve. The letter had been shared thousands of times on social media and read aloud at veteran gatherings across the country. Dr. Wells had become an unofficial spokesperson for the cause, giving interviews about the psychological impact of discrimination on combat veterans. Veterans already face significant challenges reintegrating into civilian society, she explained to a CNN reporter. When businesses explicitly reject them based on their service-related injuries, we're telling these heroes they don't belong in the communities they sacrificed to protect. Marcus realized he was facing more than a public relations crisis. This had become a moral crusade with national implications. The story was being framed as a fundamental test of American values. How do we treat our wounded warriors? His attorney, David Brennan, brought more bad news Thursday afternoon. 3 of your corporate sponsors have officially terminated their contracts. PowerSport Nutrition, Arizona Wellness Products, and Desert Sun Apparel are all pulling out immediately. The sponsor cancellations represented another $1.8 million in annual revenue. PowerSport had been Iron Wolf's largest supplement partner, providing protein powders and energy drinks that generated significant profit margins through retail sales. They cited irreconcilable differences regarding company values in their termination letters, David continued. I've also got preliminary injunction paperwork being filed by veteran advocacy groups. They want to prevent Iron Wolf from advertising any veteran-related services until the discrimination investigation is complete. Marcus felt trapped in a nightmare that kept getting worse. His business model was collapsing, his investors were threatening to seize control, and now he faced potential legal action that could shut down his veteran marketing entirely. Outside, the demonstration had evolved into a permanent encampment. Veteran groups had set up information booths, food trucks, and merchandise tables selling T-shirts with slogans like, "Honor all heroes," and "Scars tell stories." The parking lot looked like a patriotic festival rather than a protest. Jake Morrison had become the unofficial coordinator, working with Phoenix police to manage traffic flow and ensure the demonstration remained peaceful. His military experience showed in the organization. Designated areas for speakers, clear pathways for emergency vehicles, and volunteer security teams maintaining order. This isn't going away until Thompson makes real changes. Jake told a reporter from USA Today, "We're not here to destroy his business. We're here to demand respect for veterans who've sacrificed for this country." Danny Rodriguez had emerged as a reluctant celebrity. His calm demeanor during interviews contrasted sharply with Marcus Thompson's refusal to appear publicly. Veterans across America were sharing their own stories of discrimination, using Danny's experience as a catalyst for broader conversations about how society treats wounded warriors. Thursday evening brought the development Marcus had been dreading most. Victoria Hartman's investment firm issued a public statement announcing their intention to restructure Iron Wolf Fitness under new management. Recent events have demonstrated a fundamental misalignment between Iron Wolf's stated values and actual practices, effective immediately. We are exercising our contractual authority to implement new leadership committed to genuine veteran inclusion and community respect. The statement went on to announce that Danny Rodriguez would be offered a lifetime membership at all Iron Wolf locations, along with a formal apology and donation to veteran support organizations. More significantly, the company would hire a veteran affairs coordinator and implement mandatory sensitivity training for all staff members. Marcus read the statement from his home office, realizing his career in the fitness industry was effectively over. Victoria's investment firm controlled the Iron Wolf brand, and they clearly intended to rebuild without him. His personal assets were tied up in the company, meaning financial ruin was virtually certain. His phone rang with a call from his ex-wife, Sarah, who had seen the news coverage. "Marcus, what were you thinking? Our kids are seeing their father called a villain on national television." It was one conversation that got blown out of proportion. One conversation where you told a wounded veteran his scars were disgusting. "How did you become this person?" Marcus didn't have an answer. Looking back, he couldn't identify when he'd started viewing veterans with visible injuries as bad for business. The premium fitness market had always been about image and aspiration, perfect bodies, expensive equipment, and the promise that membership could transform ordinary people into their ideal selves. Somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten that real transformation often leaves scars. Friday morning brought the final blow. The Phoenix City Council had voted unanimously to revoke Iron Wolf's business licenses, pending the outcome of the discrimination investigation. Without licenses, the gyms couldn't legally operate, forcing immediate closure of all Phoenix area locations. 327 jobs disappeared overnight. Employees who had worked for Iron Wolf for years found themselves unemployed because of their boss's prejudice against wounded veterans. As Marcus cleaned out his office, he could hear the celebration outside. News of the license revocation had spread quickly through the veteran community, and the crowd was treating it as a victory for military families everywhere. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the crowd with a megaphone, reading names of Iron Wolf members who had donated their cancelled membership fees to veteran support organizations. The list went on for nearly 20 minutes, hundreds of former customers turning their refunds into charitable contributions. Marcus carried his personal belongings to his car, while veterans who had gathered to witness his downfall watched silently. No one called out insults or made threats. Their quiet presence was more powerful than any angry confrontation could have been. Danny Rodriguez approached as Marcus reached his vehicle. "Mr. Thompson, I want you to know this was never personal. It was about respect." Marcus looked at the man whose scars he'd called disturbing, whose service he'd treated as a liability. Danny's expression held no malice, only sadness for what could have been avoided. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "I was wrong. Yes, you were. But maybe someone else will learn from this." As Marcus drove away from the ruins of his business empire, he passed crowds of veterans still celebrating in the parking lot. The Iron Wolf signs were already being removed, and rumors suggested the space would be converted into a veteran-owned community fitness center. The message was clear. A community that honors its veterans had no place for businesses that discriminate against them. 6 months after the Iron Wolf collapse, downtown Phoenix had transformed in ways nobody could have predicted. The former flagship gym location had been purchased by a consortium of veteran-owned businesses and converted into the Freedom Fitness Community Center, a state-of-the-art facility specifically designed to serve military families and wounded warriors. Danny Rodriguez stood in the main workout area on opening day, watching dozens of veterans and their families explore equipment that had been carefully selected for accessibility. Adaptive machines for amputees, specialized areas for physical therapy, and trained staff who understood that not all injuries were visible. "Hard to believe this is the same place," said Tommy Patterson, flexing his reconstructed hand on a specially designed grip strengthener. His construction company had donated labor for the renovation, transforming Marcus Thompson's sterile showpiece into something that felt like a community center rather than an exclusive club. The transformation went beyond physical changes. Freedom Fitness operated on a radical model. Membership fees were based on ability to pay, with many veterans receiving completely free access. Corporate sponsors lined up to support the facility, eager to associate their brands with authentic veteran advocacy rather than empty marketing gestures. Sarah Williams had relocated one of her tattoo parlors to the building's ground floor, creating a space where veterans could get therapeutic tattoos to cover scars or commemorate fallen brothers. The integration of mental health services, peer counseling, and artistic expression under one roof represented a holistic approach to veteran wellness that had attracted national attention. We're getting calls from cities across the country wanting to replicate this model, explained Dr. Patricia Wells, who now served as Freedom Fitness's Director of Veteran Services. What started as a response to discrimination has become a blueprint for genuine veteran support. The ripple effects extended far beyond Phoenix. The Iron Wolf controversy had sparked congressional hearings on veteran discrimination, leading to stronger federal protections and mandatory sensitivity training for businesses receiving government contracts. The hashtag Scars of Service had become a movement, with veterans sharing photos of their injuries alongside stories of their service. Marcus Thompson's fall had been swift and complete. Bankruptcy proceedings had consumed his personal assets, and the fitness industry had effectively blacklisted him. His attempts to find employment in related fields were hampered by the viral recording that still circulated on social media whenever veteran discrimination was discussed. He'd taken a job managing a small warehouse in suburban Tucson, far from the Phoenix fitness scene where his reputation remained toxic. The work was honest but humbling, inventory management for a medical supply company that served VA hospitals across Arizona. His ex-wife, Sarah, had been surprisingly supportive during the bankruptcy proceedings, recognizing that their children needed their father to rebuild rather than collapse entirely. But the damage to his relationships was profound. His teenage daughter Madison barely spoke to him, embarrassed by the national attention and ashamed of his actions. "I still don't understand how you could say those things to a veteran," Madison had told him during one of their awkward, supervised visits. "Coach Williams at school lost his leg in Iraq, and he's like the strongest person I know." Marcus had tried to explain the pressure of maintaining Iron Wolf's image, the competitive fitness market, the investor expectations, but his excuses sounded hollow even to himself. He discriminated against wounded veterans, not because of business necessity, but because their scars reminded him of sacrifices he'd never made and courage he'd never shown. The warehouse job forced him to confront those realities daily. His company supplied prosthetics, wheelchairs, and rehabilitation equipment to veterans across the Southwest. Every shipping label represented someone who'd given more for their country than Marcus ever had. His supervisor, Rita Gonzalez, was a Navy veteran who'd served 2 tours in the Persian Gulf. She knew Marcus's history, but had hired him anyway, believing in second chances for people willing to do the work of redemption. "Thompson, we've got a special delivery to the Phoenix VA," Rita announced on a Tuesday morning in November. "Specialized gym equipment for their new adaptive fitness program. You're making the run." Marcus felt his stomach clench. The Phoenix VA hospital was where Danny Rodriguez received treatment, where Dr. Wells worked, where many of the veterans he'd discriminated against sought care. Returning there felt like walking back into the scene of his worst failures. The drive took 90 minutes, giving Marcus time to rehearse explanations he might need if anyone recognized him. But when he arrived at the loading dock, the VA staff treated him like any other delivery driver. His infamy had faded enough that he could move through veteran spaces without immediate recognition. The equipment he was delivering would become part of Freedom Fitness's outreach program, providing duplicate machines for veterans who needed to train at the hospital during extended treatment stays. Marcus found himself carefully handling adaptive rowing machines and wheelchair-accessible weight stations, tools that would help wounded warriors rebuild their strength and confidence. "Careful with that one," called a familiar voice. Marcus looked up to see Jake Morrison supervising the delivery from the dock supervisor's position. The motorcycle club president had taken a part-time job at the VA, coordinating volunteer services and veteran support programs. Jake's recognition was immediate and uncomfortable. "Marcus Thompson. Didn't expect to see you here. Just making a delivery," Marcus replied quietly, focusing on his work rather than meeting Jake's eyes. "That equipment's going to help a lot of people Danny Rodriguez worked with to make this program happen. Full circle, I guess." Marcus nodded, unsure how to respond. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was now personally delivering the tools that would help veterans overcome the exact type of discrimination he'd practiced. "You know," Jake continued, "Danny never wanted to destroy you. He just wanted respect. Still does, from what I hear. I don't expect forgiveness. Maybe not. But growth, learning, those are different things." Jake helped Marcus load the last piece of equipment onto a cart bound for the Adaptive Fitness Center. As they worked, Marcus noticed Jake's own scars, burns on his forearms from an IED blast, surgical marks from multiple operations, injuries that Jake wore without shame or self-consciousness. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said as they finished. "How do you get past the anger when people treat you differently because of what you've been through?" Jake considered the question while securing the equipment for transport. "You don't get past it, you get through it. Every time someone stares or makes assumptions, you choose how to respond. Danny chose to fight back when you discriminated against him, but he also chose to build something better instead of just tearing you down." The delivery complete, Marcus drove back to Tucson with Jake's words echoing in his mind. He'd spent months focused on his own losses, his business, his reputation, his financial security, but he'd never seriously considered what he might build from the wreckage. That evening, Marcus sat in his small apartment and opened his laptop. For the first time since the Iron Wolf collapse, he began writing, not excuses or justifications, but a genuine account of how he'd developed discriminatory attitudes and what he'd learned from facing their consequences. The essay began simply, "My name is Marcus Thompson, and I discriminated against wounded veterans. This is how it happened, and why it was wrong." He wrote about the competitive pressure of the fitness industry, the focus on image over substance, and the gradual dehumanization that occurred when customers became nothing more than revenue sources. He wrote about his own insecurities and lack of military service, and how those feelings had manifested as rejection of those who'd served with honor. Most importantly, he wrote about the veterans he'd met since losing Iron Wolf, employees at the warehouse, patients at the VA, volunteers like Jake Morrison who chose service over bitterness despite their own injuries. He was learning that scars told stories of survival, not defeat. The essay would eventually be published in the Arizona Republic, generating mixed reactions from readers. Some saw it as genuine accountability, while others dismissed it as too little, too late. But for Marcus, the writing process represented something more valuable than public redemption. It was the beginning of understanding who he wanted to become. Danny Rodriguez read the essay on a Sunday morning while drinking coffee at Freedom Fitness. The community center was closed, but he had keys as a board member and often came in early to plan programming for the week ahead. The essay didn't erase the discrimination Danny had faced, or the humiliation of being told his scars were disturbing, but it demonstrated that even people who'd caused harm could grow beyond their mistakes if they were willing to do the difficult work of self-examination. 300 veterans had cancelled their Iron Wolf memberships in solidarity with Danny's experience. Now those same 300 were founding members of a fitness community that proved wounded warriors deserved respect, support, and spaces designed for their success. Sometimes the most powerful victories weren't about destroying your opponents. They were about building something so much better that discrimination became irrelevant by comparison. Outside the windows of Freedom Fitness, the Phoenix skyline stretched toward mountains that had watched over countless stories of loss and redemption. Danny's scars caught the morning light as he planned another day of serving the veteran community that had rallied to his defense. Some battles left marks that never fully healed, but in the right hands, even scars could become sources of strength. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.